Yo, what up? I'm Palm Tree. I assume that anyone who is going to watch this video is already aware of what SIL is. But for anyone who, on the off chance, manages to stumble across this without actually knowing about SIL, SIL is short for the Showdown International League, which is a decently sized draft league that makes its residence on Discord. It has a very nice little community. It's just a nice place to just go chill, talk about whatever dumb bullshit hops into your head, play some draft matches if you enjoy competitive Pokemon, and SIL has a relatively small channel dedicated to talking about Pokemon fan games. Me and a couple other people on the server are avid players of fan games, and one fan game specifically that has come up a lot is Pokemon Reborn. Pokemon Reborn is a fan game that is infamous for its edgy story, but is also very famous for being hard as hell. The game boasts that it will have 18 total gyms, one for each type. Although, in the current state of the game, there are only 17 due to the fact that the game's final update is not going to be released until most likely 2021, possibly even later than that. But as it is right now, the game is long enough to do some challenge runs, and at the request of, well, not request, at the recommendation of some other people in the same channel, I decided to have some fun doing some monotype runs in Reborn, which is when you use Pokemon of only a specific type. I did two, those being Fairy and Poison, and quite enjoyed them. I was able to succeed in both, and I took a break for a while. Didn't really want to do too many challenges in a row, just so I wouldn't get burned out on it. And it's been a couple months since I did them, and I decided to come back, and I wanted to do something a little more unique than a monotype, and I asked if anyone had any ideas. One person, namely Freddy Cougar, suggested that I did a run using only Pokemon that are, as I shall put it, a part of the SIL lore. And so Freddy was kind enough to compile a list of Pokemon that at some point in SIL's draft history have done something that have made them completely meme-worthy. Be that, like, B-Sharp winning a match because a Quick Claw that it was holding procced at the perfect time, a Dugong somehow managing to 1v1 a Mega Sableye. Stupid shit like that. As well as just other dumb bullcrud that happened even outside of the draft matches themselves that led to these Pokemon kind of becoming legends within SIL. And I really liked that idea. And so, using the list that Freddy has compiled for me, thank you very much for that, Freddy, by the way, I have decided to actually undertake this run in the form of a Let's Play. I have already played Pokemon Reborn like 5 times now, so I'm going to be skipping pretty much all of the dialogue and story beats, so anyone who actually wants to know what the plot line of Reborn is should probably watch a Let's Play by literally anyone else. And this episode is not going to actually have any gameplay in it. It is simply going to be me going over the rules and of the challenge and the Pokemon that I will actually be able to use, as well as the pros and cons of those Pokemon, and how useful I think they will actually be throughout the run. And so, just getting immediately into it, here is the list of Pokemon that I'm going to be allowed to use. Infernape, Pineco, B-Sharp, Tepig, Scolipede, Salamence, Lopunny, Empoleon, Swadloon, Bibarel, Absol, Lucario, Duosion, Swellow, Weavile, Clefable, Magikarp, Behem, Glalie, Medicham, Dugong, Flareon, Alakazam, Trapinch, Gorbis, and Ditto. On the left, you can obviously see the names of the mons, and on the right, you can see the associated meme and or legendary moment. And I'm sure most of these won't make any sense to people who don't have any context on them, but if anyone actually is curious and is in SIL, just ask Freddy. He'll be able to tell you all about them. And so, without further ado, let's just get straight into it with Pokemon number 1, Infernape. Infernape, the best word to describe Infernape is solid. It has solid attacking stats, solid speed, its bulk isn't great, but it's usable. Its offensive typing is not even solid. Its offensive typing is excellent, with the 2 types that I believe are the super effective against the largest number of types in the game. Fire and Fighting. Iron Fist helps to boost the strength of some of his most important coverage moves in the form of the elemental punches, although I can't say how much I'll be using them because most of this can't be gotten until late in the game. It has good stats, it has a great level up move pool, it gets its strongest stab moves, close combat, and flare blitz just by leveling up, as well as the strong Iron Fist boosted stab priority of Mach Punch. It does suck that Flare Blitz isn't able to be learned until like the 60s range of levels, whereas Flame Wheel is learned significantly earlier and is significantly weaker, but by the time I get Flare Blitz, I'll still get Flare Blitz earlier than I'll be able to get him moves like Flamethrower, so I'll probably just stick with Flame Wheel for most of the game until I'm actually able to get Flare Blitz, but close combat should be enough to carry him through most of the early stages of the game without any issue, as he learns that as soon as he evolves at level 36. Which is still decently late because of Reborn's level cap system. That is at roughly like the 6th gym of the game. No, not the 6th gym. It's more like the 4th or 5th gym, I'd say, that he'll be fully evolved by. One thing that does suck is that he really would like to be able to use Earthquake, but he can't use Earthquake because the TM for Earthquake hasn't been input into Reborn yet for some asinine reason. I don't know why. Stone Edge is in the game. Pretty much every other notable TM is in the game. Earthquake is pretty much the only one that's missing, but I am not here to rant about that. I am here to talk about the Pokemon, so let's just move on to number 2, Pineco. Pineco is shit. It originally became a legend because of the player Super Bad Cat, a person I am good friends with, who utilized SIL's lack of a rule requiring Pokemon to be level 100 to use a level 1 sturdy Pineco with Endeavor and I believe a Berry Juice and some other item with its sturdy ability in order to enact a unique variant of the Fear strategy that is most popularly used by Rattata. Focus, Sash, Endeavor, Quick Attack, Rattata. That's where the FEA, the A being the attack portion of Quick Attack, and the R come from. In this generation that Reborn is based on, Pineco is unable to learn Endeavor, so that strategy is completely dead in the water. And although it is obtained early, I'm not going to be allowed to evolve it for the duration of the run. So the most I can imagine doing with it is maybe just abusing the fact that it learns self-destruct at an early level in earlier parts of the game to get some easy kills. But I honestly don't think I'm going to be using that much. The next Pokemon that I can talk about here is B-Sharp. Dark Steel. It packs some very notable abilities, but the only one that's really useful at all is Defiant, which grants it a de facto immunity to Intimidate, and boosts its attack by a significant amount every single time it suffers a debuff. Which, there's a decent number of debuffing moves in Reborn, so I should be able to use that fairly often. It has a great base 125 physical attack. Its stab combo is interesting. It's not fantastic, but it is solid enough. The issue with B-Sharp is not in its coverage or its stat line, because honestly its stats aside from speed are all pretty solid. Its issue is its availability. B-Sharp is not available until very late in the game unless someone is lucky enough to have a Pawnyard hatch from a mystery egg that you can get from an early game side quest. That only has a roughly 5% chance of happening, and the egg is generated when you create your save file, not when you complete the quest. So it's not like I can save scum until I get the Pawnyard. I have to take whatever I get because I don't want to keep replaying the game. So I'd best hope that I'm able to get Pawnyard early. If I'm not, it's not the end of the world. But I very much would hope so, because otherwise I won't be able to get it until reaching Route 4, which, despite the name, is actually a decently late game location in Reborn. Your Pokemon are going to be at roughly level 70 by the time you will reach Route 4. Moving on from him, we have Tepig. Shout out to the user of SIL Tepig. That he is the entire reason that this Pokemon is here. This Pokemon is garbage. Even if I could actually evolve it, Emboar would be completely outclassed by Infernape. There's no way in hell I'm going to use this thing. Moving on immediately to Scolipede. My boy. I fucking love Scolipede. Dope-ass design. Its stab combo is basically only bug because its only poison move until pretty much the end of the game is going to be Poison Tail, which does less damage than most of the non-stab moves that Scolipede will learn. So I'm probably just going to have Double Edge and Mega Horn be his moves, in all honesty, that he uses to attack. But his real boon here is his access to Speed Boost, which is an absolutely fantastic ability. Thanks to that, Scolipede is, after one Speed Boost, the fastest Pokemon in the entire roster that I have at my disposal for this challenge. It also boasts the ability to Baton Pass its Speed Boost boosts to any Mon that it desires, because it naturally learns the move. This combo was so powerful that it led to Baton Pass as a whole being banned from Gen 6 OU, which can be directly blamed on Scolipede Baton passing that speed to Manaphy and other powerful sweepers that would then use a setup move like Calm Mind or Tail Glow and just wreck everything in their path. That alone should go to show how good Scolipede is. It also has strong stab, and its Mega Horn, its base attack, 100 attack, is solid. Not the best in the world, but not the worst either. And the last thing I will touch on before moving on, that special defense stat. Pretty fucking nice. And then we have Salamence. Salamence is kind of famous. It is one of Hoenn's 2 pseudo-legendaries, and of the 2 pseudo-legends of my favorite region, I honestly prefer Metagross in pretty much every way because I don't find Salamence's design that appealing. But I can't deny that Salamence is extremely potent in battle and is quite possibly one of the strongest Pokemon on this roster, boasting 135 base attack, 110 special attack, and 110 speed. Very good offensive stats. It could honestly be a pretty solid mixed attacker. Intimidate and Moxie are both fantastic abilities, and its move pool, although it doesn't have any notable flying stab, it still has an Earthquake immunity because of the flying typing, which is always nice. And it boasts very powerful Outrages and various other moves like Fire Blast, its own Stone Edges and Earthquakes, and tons of other really good moves, including the Elemental Fangs for some very important coverage. The problem with this is that Bagon can't be captured until literally the very last dungeon of the game, right before the Glass Workshop. Now, I still think Salamence will be worth catching and using because the aforementioned Glass Workshop is arguably the single hardest fight in the game, home to a series of 3 battles in a row, 2 of which are double battles with both of your opponents having full teams of 6. It's essentially a 30 versus 6 Pokemon gauntlet, and it's honestly kind of brutal, so Salamence would be really nice to have for that. Really sucks I can't get it any earlier, but not going to complain, because there's still various other very strong Pokemon that I can get earlier in the game. Such as Lopunny. Now, Lopunny is probably not regarded that highly by many people unless they are aware of exactly how powerful the Mega Evolution is, which is why I have the Mega Evolution stats in the bottom right corner there instead of the base stats of actual Lopunny. Now, Baniri is caught very early in Reborn. Only just after the first gym it becomes available, which is very nice because thanks to the friendship increasing location and the Soothe Bell being basically right next to where you capture it, you can evolve it almost immediately, and upon evolution it learns Return, a stab move with base 102 power. Even with Lopunny's frankly mediocre base 76 attack, which is actually still decent for that early in the game, such a strong move as Stab Return is more than enough to carry you through a handful of early game battles, which is really nice. It also boasts Bounce as a decent coverage move that it learns by level up, and most importantly, it learns High Jump Kick and Jump Kick by level up, which it will be able to use as stab moves after Mega Evolving. Prior to Mega Evolution, its only good ability is Limber, which allows it to be immune to paralysis, which is nice. Not going to complain about that, but the real cool crap is Scrappy, which makes it so that Lopunny's normal and fighting moves are able to hit ghost types after it Mega Evolves. If it were Generation 8, it would also allow it to be immune to Intimidate, but this is a Gen 7 fan game, so that sadly doesn't exist yet. Now, because of how Mega Evolution is handled in Reborn, Lopunny is likely going to fall off in terms of how good it is very early on, and then skyrocket later in the run after Gym 15 once I'm able to actually get the Mega Ring. Because Mega Lopunny is an OU staple for a reason. It is a fantastic Mega Evolution with great power, great speed, great moves, and will most likely be the first Mega Evolution that I use in this run. There is another that I might permanently opt to use over Mega Lopunny, but I can genuinely see myself switching between the two. Though it is worth noting that although it is the only really good normal type here, there are actually various other good fighting types on this roster, including Infernape, who I already talked about. So it does have some competition in that regard. Although fighting is my favorite type, so I really wouldn't be that opposed to using multiple fighting types. Then we have another remarkably solid Pokemon in Empoleon, boasting the unique Water-Steel typing. Torrent is the better of its two abilities, in my opinion, because it's not a physical attacker, so it really doesn't use Defiant. But it provides the single best Fairy resistance of any Pokemon on the list, as all of the other Steel types are neutral to Fairy. The only Fire type has, although good the only Fire type that resists Fairy has good special defense but poor HP, and Scolipede doesn't really count. Its defenses aren't really high enough for it to be a legitimate resistance. But Empoleon has good water moves that it learns by level up. It's available decently early, being able to be found in 7th Street, which is just after the, I believe, 8th gym in the game, which is a little bit into the middle section of the game, which is a good point to be available. Now, it does have the problem of that its best stab move, Steel Stab Flash Cannon, is unobtainable until Gym 15, because it's the Gym TM of the Steel Gym, but it'll be able to get by without it, I think, especially if I'm able to get B-Sharp as a proper Steel-type attacker from the Mystery Egg. Empoleon can be very potent, and as most of this roster is comprised of offense-oriented Pokemon, it's nice to have some defensive wall breakers like Empoleon and a couple more that I'll get to later available at my disposal. Overall, a very good mon. Then there's Swadloon. I don't want to talk about Swadloon for too long. It's not fully evolved, its stats and move pool are not good enough to justify using it at all. The only notable thing it has is an electric resistance, as it's only one of 2 Pokemon that is either resistant or immune to electric in the entire roster, but it's pretty much useless because you catch it right before the Poison Gym when it's a grass type, so it'll be mostly useless there. I genuinely can't see myself using this thing for very long, if at all, but at the very least, it should be decent in the early sections of the game. Then we have Bibarel, a fan favorite and one of the many jokingly worshipped Pokemon gods. Normal water with Simple and Unaware and Moody as its abilities. All three solid, though Moody is the most famous because of the random stat boosts it gives you can either be a help or a hindrance. Ideally, it'll be a help because I genuinely believe that utilizing Moody and Bibarel's defense curl rollout combo that it gets early on by level up will probably be necessary to beat certain early game battles. I'm not a fan of having to use such a cheap strategy to do that, but gotta do what you gotta do. Now, naturally, as a regional rodent, it'll be pretty much useless after a short amount of time, but I don't really hold that against it. It's only meant to be used in the early game. I can capture it immediately, which is going to be extremely helpful considering I'm enforcing the species clause on myself. And it's a Bibarel. You can't hate Bibarel. I mean, look at that face. But anyway, moving on. Next up, we have Absol. I absolutely adore Absol. It is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. My favorite Dark type. It has a fantastic attack stat and a surprisingly great move pool with a lot of coverage moves, Mega Horn, Play Rough, Night Slash, Sucker Punch to make up for its poor speed. It also boasts some surprising special coverage, mainly in Ice and Fire moves, of all things. But it's still held back by a couple of key things. First off, most of its really good moves aren't learned until late levels, but that's not a problem because the other big problem is its availability in Reborn. It's not available until fairly late in the game. Around the same time you can catch an Absol, you can also catch a Sneasel, which evolves into Weavile, which is better in almost every single way. It takes hits better, it deals a bit less damage, but it also has an additional stab to make up for that. And it also has overall stronger moves in terms of base power with, like, Icicle Crash. Absol has to rely on Night Slash and Sucker Punch, both of which are only base 70. Weavile packs a pretty mean Throat Chop, Knockoff, Icicle Crash, Ice Punch, overall stronger moves than Absol does. Now, granted, Absol does have Super Luck to boast over it, but I don't think the Super Luck Scope Lens Night Slash set is good enough to justify using Absol over Weavile. It really does hurt my heart to say this, because I love this thing to death, but I genuinely think that Absol is going to be one of the more useless mons of this run. And its Mega Evolution sadly doesn't fare much better. There's better Mega Evolutions available to me despite its fantastic attack and speed and Magic Bounce being arguably one of the best abilities in the game, carrying over Absol's fantastic move pool into a much stronger mon overall. But it takes up the Mega slot, which is better given to Mega Lopunny or another Mega that I will get to later. Weavile still packs an additional stab over it, as well as still having better speed, even if it's outclassed in terms of attack power now. But most importantly, Absolite can't be gotten until the very end of the game. I can see myself using this when episode 19 comes out if I ever need the raw power it boasts, but until episode 19, I think Absol's mostly going to be sitting on the bench. Sorry to say. And then we have Lucario, one of the most popular Pokemon of all time. Bulk is mediocre, attacking stats are good, speed is okay, move pool's pretty solid, fighting steel's a good offensive typing, decent abilities. Honestly, I'm just kind of desensitized to Lucario. Unless it's the Mega variation, I am kind of underwhelmed by it in most aspects, but I'm here to judge how good it is as a Pokemon on this roster. So, as a Steel type, it's outclassed by Empoleon and B-Sharp. As a Fighting type, it's outclassed by Mega Lopunny. That's pretty much all I have to say, honestly, unless this thing gets its Mega Zone in episode 19, which I do actually plan on coming back to this once episode 19 drops next year. I really don't see myself using Lucario that much. It's not available until after both B-Sharp and all of the good fighting types have been made available in the game, and like, most of those fighting types have better speed, better attack, better moves. It's a very solid mon. I could see myself using it, but without its Mega Evolution, it doesn't really stand out to me at all. Then we have Duosion. Duosion's really friggin' weird. It has the same special attack stat as another Pokemon on this list, Behem, and also has an almost identical move pool, mainly using moves of the Psychic, Ghost, Grass, and Fighting variety. Although I believe it also carries additional electric type coverage that I believe BHM also shares. Now, there are some minute differences between the two, namely Duosion's not fully evolved, and also boasts Magic Guard and Regenerator, whereas BHM will instead be running Analytic most likely. Both of them are probably going to be used as Trick Room sweepers, as Trick Room is a very potent strategy in Pokemon Reborn due to the AI not really knowing how to handle it, and most battles not being able to handle it simply by the way they're designed. But I don't really see it as competing with BHM necessarily. BHM is overall a better choice due to its higher BST, but I see them working as partners under Trick Room due to their similar abilities. Like, say if BHM goes down, I can immediately bring Duosion in and fulfill pretty much the exact same role if I needed to in that fight. The thing that really puts BHM at a higher point than it for me is that BHM has more use out of Trick Room due to its access to Analytic and stuff like that. So, I think overall BHM's going to be the better Pokemon, but I do think Duosion will probably see some use, even if it's not fully evolved. Then we have Swellow. Swellow is boring. Guts is mostly useless because its base attack stat isn't that great, and you can't reliably activate Guts until you get the Flame or Toxic Orbs, which aren't available until very late in the game. I don't like Scrappy on this thing because I'd rather just hit the Ghost with a flying move than try and hit it with a weak Boom Burst coming off a 75 special attack. The only things that are really going for this thing are the fact that it's a flying type and that it has very high speed. I don't really have much to say on it other than that, honestly. It's available decently early on. I can see myself using it early on, but eventually it's just definitely just going to be my HM slave that I use to fly. And then there's Weavile. I talked about Weavile extensively back when I was talking about Absol. It has many advantages over Absol, including better bulk, even if only by a small margin, better attack, and better speed. Its coverage is notably worse, with its only real coverage move being Poison Jab to hit fairy types, which can't be found until very late in the game in Reborn, but its Ice Stab is usually more than often not enough for it to get by against things that resist its Dark-type moves. Now, it does have shitty abilities like Pressure, but it makes up for that with its raw power and speed, and although it doesn't have any ice moves that it learns by level up other than the weak special move Icy Wind, it can get Ice Punch from a move tutor not long after you're able to capture it, so I'm not too worried about that. It does suck that it's not available until fairly late in the game, unless I believe Sneasel can be in the same Mystery Egg as B-Sharp, but I could be wrong on that. But nonetheless, I think Weavile is likely going to be a mainstay of the team due to its good offense, good speed, good offensive typing, and just generally being a good mon. I hate Clefable. There's no beating around the bush there. I hate this mon with a burning passion. It has been a thorn in my side ever since I started playing competitive. But begrudgingly, I am going to have to use it here. It's the only fairy type on the roster. I think Unaware is going to be vital for stopping enemy sweepers from getting out of control because there's a lot of Pokemon in this game that use stuff like Swords Dance and Dragon Dance. It has legitimate defensive utility, which is not something that can be said for most of the Pokemon on this list, as most of them are specifically oriented around offense. Calm Mind or Cosmic Power with Magic Guard is an additional set that could be used, I suppose. I really don't like this thing. I just want to move on from talking about it as soon as I can. Just know that that thing's going to be good. Magikarp. Praise be to the High Priest of Splash. With its high defense, high speed, the only drawback that I can think of is that it can't be found until around Gym 15. Something this powerful had to have a truly long side quest spanning the entire game, so that players would have to prove their dedication to their god if they wanted to be worthy of wielding its power. I don't need to say anything about Magikarp. You already know how strong it is. That is BHM. I pretty much touched on everything that BHM is going to do back when I was talking about Duosion. It's mainly going to be a Trick Room Sweeper with some utility outside of it as a special attacker taking advantage of its boosts from Analytic. Could additionally utilize Telepathy in some of the double battles, which are pains in the ass in this game, being brutally honest. But I don't see it being a totally necessary Pokemon to use outside of Trick Room. I think Trick Room is going to be where it really shines. Now, it's worth noting that Algium is actually available very early in the game, just before the Ghost-type gym, which, yes, admittedly sucks, considering it's caught right before Gym it's week 2, but it's a pretty nice mon to have that early, because it evolves not long after into BHM, and BHM has a very good stats. I like it overall. I think it'll be a valuable member of the team, even if I probably will use Alakazam more as the team's Psychic type once I get him. Glalie sucks. Glalie really sucks. Its stats are the definition of mediocre in every single possible way. 80 is not a good range to have in every stat. It looks more like a Digimon than a Pokemon. The only notable things I can praise it for are that Moody, while hilariously inconsistent, can sometimes be good, and Freeze Dry is a nice move to have because this roster is overall not very good at breaking through water types. But I still don't see myself using Glalie because it's just that bad. Its move pool is garbage, its stats are garbage, its typing is garbage, its abilities are garbage, because even Moody is insanely unreliable, and I don't want to be relying on that in the late game when you actually catch this thing. You want to know what else is garbage about Glalie? It's Mega Evolution. It loses Moody, the one thing that could make its stats decent. It gets Bust to attack and special attack, which are nice, I suppose. Speed, it really needed more speed. Refrigerate is not the ability I think it needed. Sure, the base power boost to its stab is kind of nice, but I think it really needed something better. I don't know, like, maybe a version of Tough Claws for non-contact moves or something. Like, it really needed something other than Refrigerate, if you ask me. It still has access to Freeze Dry, but that's the only thing that I can say that's positive about it, because this Mega is such utter crap in comparison to literally every Mega that's available on this roster. I'm never going to use Glalie. Here's a mon that I actually am going to use, though. Medicham. Medicham is not that fast, not that bulky, but it makes up for that with sheer, raw, pure power. Pure power makes its otherwise mediocre base 60 attack into something truly respectable. Legitimately a very high attack stat. Coupled with its monstrously strong high jump kick that it learns by level up, as well as Zen Headbutt, which is another very nice stab move for it to have. Those two are honestly all it needs. I don't see myself giving this thing coverage moves, and it's not like I could, considering most of its coverage is kind of ass. Like, basically all it gets is the elemental punches. So, I don't see myself giving it, like, any coverage at all. But the really big thing about Medicham is the fact that its Mega Stone is currently implemented. Mega Medicham has better bulk, better speed, and most importantly, the highest raw attack stat in the game. This is quite literally the strongest member of the team, without taking boosting moves like Calm Mind and stuff into account. I can see myself using Mega Medicham as soon as I am able to. The only thing that Mega Lopunny has over it is its better coverage, and the fact that it's not completely walled by Ghost types, which honestly suck. And also, it has significantly better speed, so there is legitimate reason to switch between Mega Lopunny and Mega Medicham rather than simply using one over the other, which I genuinely think is what I am going to do. I am going to use both most likely, because I think both of their abilities are needed in order to beat the game. And honestly, for the final gym, I'll probably go with Mega Lopunny over Mega Medicham, because the final gym is Rock type, and I just want to have more Rock resistances, so I'd rather have more Fighting types. so I'd rather really have the additional fighting type of Mega Lopunny than just Mega Medicham. But yeah, there's really not much to be said about Medicham overall. It's just, it hits really goddamn hard. That's pretty much all it does. And that's all I can ask from it. Dugong is the definition of meh. It has a very good resistance to ice and thick fat. A very good resistance to ice and fire thanks to thick fat. And some nice defensive stats to back that up, but its stab combination, though impressive, is not very good, coming off of base 70 attacking stats. It can be obtained from an early game mystery egg, which is nice, but I don't see myself using this thing much. Maybe as an HM slave later in the game, but overall it's just outclassed by the other water types that are available in this run. Flareon. I'll be right back, actually. I really need to get a drink of water. I'll probably honestly cut this out in editing. Okay, so Flareon. .130 base attack is very nice. I can't really understate that. Special defense makes for a decent fairy resist, but not a fantastic one. Its move pool, it pretty much basically only has Facade and Flare Blitz. That's literally it, but honestly, that's all it needs. Unlike Swellow, its attack stat is good enough for it to be useful even without the Guts boost, and when it does get the Guts boost, it just gets even better. Flareon is a great Pokemon. I would be very happy to use it. It's thankfully available right before the Ice-type gym, which is very nice. And, like, Flareon's a pretty simple mon. It just hits things, but that's all it really needs to do. And so I'm just gonna move on to Alakazam. Alakazam is quite possibly going to be the best special attacker on this team. 120 base speed, 135 special attack, with a decently wide special move pool that boasts moves like Focus Blast, Energy Ball, and, of course, Psychic. Alakazam is held back by the fact that it will drop to a single physical move. Most of its good moves can only be learned by TMs, and its level up move pool is honestly pretty shit. The only notable thing it gets being its Psychic Stab. It also has the problem of that its Mega Stone is currently not implemented into the game because Reborn doesn't want the really, really good Megas to be a thing yet, I guess. And one thing that I do want to touch on is that I'm usually not a fan of using the Life Orb in playthroughs, just because I don't like the recoil adding up, but Magic Guard will allow for it to safely get that boost without having to take the recoil damage. So I think that Alakazam is probably going to be holding the Life Orb once I obtain it for the rest of the run, because I see this thing being a mainstay of the squad, just because of its raw power. And then, quite possibly the strangest mon on this list, Trapinch. I don't feel like going on a whole rant about this like I did in my first take of this. I'm just going to make Trapinch into a weird Dugtrio substitute. It's my only electric immunity, as it's my only ground type. It's the only Pokemon, I believe, that gets Earthquake by level up on the entire roster. So in other words, it's the only ground move I'm going to have that actually does decent damage. My main plan is to get it in under Trick safely while Trick Room's up and then kill something pretty much every time it comes in, because base 100 attack is actually the same attack stat as Flygon for some reason. So this thing is doing as much damage as its final evolution would be. I legitimately am going to use this thing. It's available at a decent point in the game, though sadly, again, once it's just before a gym that it's weak to, which sucks, but oh well. Arena Trap is an excellent ability, Earthquake is an excellent move, Trapinch is adorable, I love it, I'm just going to use it in a really damn weird way. And then after Trapinch, there is Gorbis. Gorbis is interesting. On its own, it's not spectacular. It has very good special attack and decent defense, but bad speed, bad physical attack, and bad HP. However, if Clamperl reaches the ludicrous level of 50 before evolving, it learns Shell Smash, arguably the single best boosting move in the game. Not only does that give Gorbis an absolutely ludicrous special attack stat, it also makes its speed enough to outrun most things that it wants to fight, especially if it somehow activates Swift Swim as well. But more importantly, Gorbis learns Baton Pass. This is why it's a meme from SIL, because Baton Pass wasn't banned in the first season, and Gorbis went around Baton Passing Shell Smashes to things, and then things would just die. I can see this thing being very potent. I'm not actually aware of at what point in the game it becomes available. I believe there's an egg for it early on. Might be the same one that SIL has a chance to come out of. But even then, I won't be using it until later in the game because I need it to have Shell Smash before I can use it properly. So it'll probably be benched for the beginning of the game and then actually shoot into usage later on. And even then, I might just use Empoleon instead. I'm not sure, but this thing has a definite niche that I could see myself using. And then finally, Ditto. It's a goddamn Ditto. What else is there to say? Switch it in, activates Imposter. If I can get my hands on a Choice Scarf, it'll be able to outrun everything. Being able to copy an enemy Pokemon will probably be extremely useful in certain situations, and I think this thing's going to be necessary for certain boss fights, especially since it is found, once again, on 7th Street. Actually, no, I think it's found even earlier than 7th Street, but, like, legit, this thing's a great addition to this squad, and I'm very happy that it's here. So, thank you to the guy who accidentally put Limber on his Ditto in SIL instead of Imposter. You're the entire reason that I'm able to use it in this run. And now finally, before I end this absurdly long video, I just want to lay out the ground rules of this run. I'm only allowed to use Pokemon that are featured on the list. If I need to, I can get an HM Slave, but I can't use HM Slaves in the battle. X items in mid-battle revised are illegal with the sole exception of the second round of the Glass Workshop Gauntlet, which is simply because you're supposed to get your team fully healed between rounds 2 and round 3, but for some reason that only happens to Pokemon that are conscious. You can't have a fainted Pokemon won't be healed, so once I get to the end of that round, I'm just going to use revives on the rest of the Pokemon that are fainted in my party, because I personally think that's fair. But I'll still be treating it as if they were fainted. So, like, if I'm down to my last mon and it's against the enemy Umbreon, which is usually the last mon of round 2 of that fight, and it faints, and even if I have something that I just revived in the back, I'll probably force myself to restart, because I would count that as breaking the rules. All Pokemon must have a nickname relevant to the inside joke it comes from. I have to catch all Pokemon on the list. An NFE on the list can't be used, cannot be evolved past the listed evolution, so like Duosion but not Ryu. And the last 3 rules, Minimize and Double Team are illegal, but Bright Powder and Lax Incense are not. Abusing trading to obtain Pokemon early is illegal, but aside from the things that I just mentioned, I am allowing myself access to everything else. Every held item in the world, every healing item in the world that isn't a revive. And so now, this video's been going on for long enough. I very much look forward to properly starting this run sometime soon, and I hope to have a gameplay episode up soon. And I am aware that this has gone on for way too goddamn long, so I'm just going to end it. Thank you for tuning in, and see all of you later.